And sophomore year were great. And then junior year, in a nutshell, all my best friends and roommates moved, which meant my best option was to live in like this fake frat house where one guy actually moved out in the middle of the night so he wouldn't be convicted on like a sex crime. And I'm like, well, I can deal with it because I'm closer to my girlfriend, who I was like crazy about, until her roommate sat me down and said, well, Jennifer and I are sleeping together now. And that was the point where I said, like, that was the point where I'm like, I need to be out of here. Like, I need to move on. What's the next thing? Like, we got to move on from this. But I had a problem, which is that you need an internship to graduate from college, and I couldn't find one. Like, I'd spent the entire summer just applying to like every little thing I could find, like every week for 4 months. That's like somewhere between 50 to 100 applications. The only response out of all of that I got back was one postcard from PBS that just said, oh, we received your application, like, thank you so much, like, we'll let you know, and thank you in advance for your generous donation during our annual pledge drive. And I just looked at that and I'm just like, that doesn't help me. And you're being really presumptuous, PBS. Like, I just don't, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I've come this far, I'm not gonna be able to graduate. All I could think of to kind of like medicate myself was I would just go to school, then go back home and play GoldenEye for Nintendo 64. Because like you could shoot like windows and like walls, and you're just like, oh, this is like a little stress reliever. But other than that, I was a sad person. But then about like in October, I come into school one morning and I'm sitting in the student center by myself. And I'm eating breakfast, my little breakfast of like a cup of cereal and like the little crappy hash browns. And I turn on my phone and I have a voicemail and I'm like, huh, that's weird. Like no one calls me like this early in the morning. And I go and I listen to it, and it's breaking up a lot. It's not that clear, but I can definitely hear someone say, hi, Joe. This is Sang from CBS. We really liked your resume. We wanted to know if you could come in for an interview, and I listened to this like shocked. Not just because I had finally gotten a response, I had never applied to CBS for an internship, so I just have no idea what is going on. I'm like, I don't know if there's a mix-up, like why I have this message. It doesn't matter, like I know. Whatever it takes, I need to make this work right now, otherwise I will not graduate from school. So I call back and I managed to schedule for an interview for like 2 weeks later. So I go in and I meet with Sang. He introduces me to Helen, who is the head of all of HR for CBS. And I'm just like nervously sitting there thinking like, all right, I don't know why I'm here. It doesn't matter. Like, I need to walk out here with an internship, no matter what it takes. Like, I will fake my way through this. To the point where where Helen asks, like, oh, so what department were you thinking of working in? And I just said, I'll go anywhere, because I like didn't want to admit I didn't know what the options were. In hindsight, terrible answer, like in an interview. She's just, and that's what she kind of said. She's like, we kind of need to be a little more specific like that. But she was nice. She bears with me. And she's like, well, you seem like kind of a creative type. I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer, who worked in the promotions department. So I now have an interview with Jennifer. And we're talking for a few minutes, and I'm still pretty nervous. But she's like, oh, like, Final Cut. Like, that's great. And the next thing I know, she's like, so, yeah, you can work as my assistant, like, when can you start? And so we decide that I'm going to start, like, shortly after New Year's, and I'm just like, thank you so much, and I leave. I go down to have my my ID badge made up, and I'm just, like, trying to take it in. I'm just like, all right, this is great. Like, I did it. Like, I'm kind of, like, in the final, like, steps now. I kind of can't believe this, and, like, on top of which, like, I just fell into it, too. So the rest of the semester goes by. I have like my first month of winter break, and then New Year's goes by. And like the first week in January, I'm taking the bus into the city from New Jersey, and I'm trying to like take it in still, being like, all right, like not only do I have my internship, I'm gonna be able to do it. I'm gonna be able to finish college, and on top of which too, I'm like, well, like now this is like the spring semester. If I do a good job, I can convince them to hire me full time, so I can get a job as soon as I finish college. So I'm not just gonna move on from like all these problems that have been bothering me. Like I actually have a chance to do it well. So I'm just like kind of nervously anticipating this and like nervously excited. I'm like, okay, like this is the start of the rest of my life. And so I get off the bus at the Port Authority and I take the subway up to Columbus Circle and I walk over to the office. I walk up, I show my ID badge, I take the elevator up to Jennifer's office, just like thinking like, okay, like this is it, this is my new life. I walk in Jennifer's office, like holding my briefcase, like really proud, being like, all right, like I'm here. And she's like, oh great, like you have a bag, like do me a favor, empty it out and then walk down to the supply room and then I'm gonna need you to take some things for me. So this is when I found out about Jennifer's scam that she was running, because she didn't really like her job. She didn't feel like she made enough money. So she'd come up with this little scheme where she would steal office supplies, like tapes and stuff like that, and sell them to her friends who are freelancers. So that way, like her friends got stuff for cheap, and then she would just keep the money. And she's like, yeah, just empty out your bag and just go to the supply room, just fill it up with like VHS tapes, and then meet my friend outside. And I'm like listening to this, like, oh, all right. And I'm kind of nervous because I'm like, well, wait, this is my first day. I'm like, is this some kind of like weird test, like to see if I if I'm gonna be kept on or not? And I'm just really nervous. I was like, well, like, do I do this, or like, if I do, am I gonna get in trouble? If I don't, is she gonna be mad at me? And I'm like, do I do it? Do I don't do it? And as I like keep thinking about that in that like frozen moment, I'm remembering it took me like almost half a year just to find this. And that was by accident. I'm supposed to graduate in 4 months. There's pretty much no way I will find another internship. So at which point I say, sure, where's the supply room? And I go and stuff about 12 VHS tapes into my bag and start walking back outside, like 15 minutes later after I just walked in. And like I'm walking out and I'm just like, this is gonna go, like, because that's what I do, like this is gonna go wrong. Like I'm gonna walk out, like the front security guard's gonna like yell at me and like I'm gonna get in trouble, like this is just gonna go horribly. But so I walk back outside and like the security guard's just like, oh, hey, how's it going? I'm like, hey, that's all right. And then I walk outside, I'm just kind of like nervously looking around, and this guy comes up to me and is just like, oh, hey, like, are you Jennifer's intern? I'm like, yeah, like is this guy like gonna rat me out? Like, is this guy gonna like abduct me? Like something bad is gonna happen? No. I give him the tapes. He's just like, all right, thanks, like, goes off. And I walk back inside. Security guard's just like, hey, how's it going? And I go back up to Jennifer's office, and she's just like, oh, was there any problems? And I'm like, no. And she's like, all right, great. And so 3 days a week, that was my internship. Like, I wasn't doing like normal work. I was just like stealing things from my supervisor, just like doing things that like she didn't want to do. Like most of it was just like errands like that, or like occasionally she'd be like, I need something from Dana Tyler, and she can be an asshole at times. Like, I need you to go down and charm her. And I'm just like, I can do that. And then so I would run these errands that like she couldn't do herself, and then I would sit in her office and we watch soap operas, and I'm just like, all right, like, I guess this is it. Everything's gonna be fine. And then like the other 2 days, I'd be back at school, like, and I'm like just kind of thinking to myself, like feeling really cool, like I had this secret double life that no one else knew about. Like I'd come home, like I'd watch the CBS News and Letterman, and be like, yeah, like I fell into this, but like yeah, I'm like really tough, like I'm really cool. So this went on for the rest of the semester, and I never had any problems until my last week in April. I came in one day and Jennifer's like, well, my friend needs a favor, but he doesn't need supplies. Like, things are different this time. He actually needs old news footage of battleships for a project he's working on. I'm just like, all right. Like, I'm trying to like picture like this guy's deal, like from the little bits that I've interacted with him. I'm just like, oh, so he's like some kind of Russian spy or something, like, because that's a normal thing that people ask for. And so she's explaining it to me, and because it's a lot different in this case. So as she's explaining to me, what I have to do is I have to go to the tape library, which is something that any television network has. And so this is a decent-sized room with just like these moving shelves with like decades worth of tapes of every news broadcast, like from decades, like thousands of these little mini like digital videotapes. And she's like, so I'm gonna need you to go in, find 2 tapes out of like the thousands that are down there. I need you to copy them, bring them back to me, and no one can know that you're doing this, because obviously like any company doesn't want you using their things for just other people. And like it's very clearly labeled like for internal use only. There's a librarian who you have to log in like anything you use. Like they very closely monitor it. And she's like, yeah, you can't let anyone know that you're doing this somehow. And I'm just like, she's like, that seems like easy enough to do. Like, right, you can do that. And on the one hand, I'm just like, there's no way I can pull this off. And as I think about it, I'm like, I have a week to go, and I really want a job. And I'm like, I can definitely pull this off. And she knew, like, this is not going to be an easy thing to do, so she at least managed to narrow it down. She's like, well, okay, this is how it's, like, vaguely organized. Here's, like, where you're going to want to look for these 2 tapes. So I'm like, okay, like, I can work with that. I can do this. So I go down to the floor with the tape library, and I'm just kind of, like, slowly walking back and forth down the hall, just kind of, like, nonchalantly, like, looking in. Like, the librarian's in there, like, other people are in there. But after, like, 20 minutes, I walk by, and it's empty. And I'm like, okay, like, this is my, like, all right, like, I lucked out. Like, this is my chance. So I run in there, and I'm, like, looking through, like, I have written down where I'm supposed to look, just kind of, like, going through the tapes. And I managed to find the 2 that she has picked out with this battleship footage. And like each of these tapes have like little pull-out sheets that say, and I look on, sure enough, that like battle intrepid like story. Like I'm like, okay, this is what I need. Grab them, run out, back down the hall, just like rushing down. First empty editing station I can find. Lock the door behind me, put the tapes in, start like copying them over. And I'm sitting there like practically sweating, just like amazed that I've been able to get this far, and just thinking to myself like, okay, this is it. Like it all comes down to this moment. And as I'm thinking, like I have all this like adrenaline going through me because I'm thinking about it. Months ago, I was just like this sad, like late teenager, like 20-year-old who just sat in his parents' basement playing GoldenEye for like Nintendo. I'm like a real life like double agent now. Like I'm just thinking about like how far I've come. I have the James Bond theme going through my head, like as these tapes are copying over. The first one finishes up, pop in the next one. That one finishes up, pop it out. Like grab them out, and I'm like walking down the hallway as fast as I can, like inconspicuously looking. Well, like walk back over to the tape library. It's still empty. I'm like, all right. I've done it. I'm gonna be able to do it. I walk back in, and as I'm putting the tape, like the original tapes, back on the shelf, that's when I hear, what are you doing in here? And I look over, and it's the librarian. And granted, he's just this short, stocky, very effeminate man, middle-aged man, but I am terrified of him right now. He is the scariest person in my world right now. Because as far as I know, I'm done. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I don't know what their consequences are for this kind of thing. Like as I know, I'm gonna lose my I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna lose my internship. I'm not gonna graduate. And on top of which, I was gonna be the first person in my family to graduate college. What else? Like, what else could happen? He's gonna, I'm gonna get, sued. I'm from CDS. And I have no money anyway. I'm gonna get put in jail. Every bad thing that can happen to me right now will happen to me. And he's just looking at me like, well, what are you doing in here? But again, in that same moment, I'm thinking to myself, I say, no. I have come too far. I've gone through too much. I can get through this. I'm not gonna let this stop me. So I just look up at him calmly, and he's looking at me like, well, what is it? And I just said, I don't know. And he just kind of looks at me like disgusted. He's like, just get out of here. And so I walk out. Not my proudest moment. Not exactly James Bond caliber, smooth. But it didn't matter because I was out of there and I had the copies. So I walk back up to Jennifer's office and she's like, well, were you able to get the copies? And I'm like, yep, here you go. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. This is great. This is going to help my friend out so much. And I'm like, yeah, it was a little tough, but it was no big deal. So we're sitting there. She's like, I'm really glad. I'm really appreciative of all your help. And I was like, I've had a great time. And I'm like, if I worked here full time, I'd be able to help you out all the time. And she's like, yeah, you know what? That sounds great. Tell you what, you put in a good couple months. Just finish out this week. Just take some time, relax, graduate, and then give me a call. And, we'll talk. And I'm like, that sounds fantastic. So I finish out the week. We have our senior week. I hang out with my friends. I have that week to just finally relax. And then I graduate. And the next week, I call up Jennifer, and I get her voicemail. And I say, hey, Jen, it's Joe. Just want to let you know, I called, if you still want to talk, that'd be great. I'm really interested in working full time. And so about a week and a half went by and I didn't hear anything back. And so I tried following up. Hey Jen, just want to let you know, just give me a call, anytime, I'm free. And I never heard back. And eventually I accept the fact that I'm not going to hear back from Jen, that if I'm not working for her as a free intern, she has no use for me even after everything I've done. And I'm pretty bummed out about it because here I was really gonna move on with my life the right way, and now I just, everything's kind of fallen to shit. But so the summer goes by, I look for work, I just do what I can. And a month or two later, I'm doing my thing and I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, oh, I've actually really been enjoying myself this summer, and even though I'm not moving on the way I'm thinking about it, I thought I would, all the other problems that I'd been going through about a year ago, I don't care about those anymore. So even though, no matter what, as long as enough time goes on, most of your problems be solved, and that's good enough for me. So thank you.